My wife banned myself from our wedding because she slept with my wife's ex-boyfriend before we got together. My wife will call Lauren and I are getting married in a few weeks and it's supposed to be the happiest time of our lives. We've been planning every detail together for months, flowers, seating arrangements, the venue, everything. But right now, instead of focusing on the excitement of our big day, I'm caught in the middle of a family drama that's spiraling out of control. It all revolves around my sister-in-law, we'll call Jessica, and Lauren's decision to ban her from the wedding. To give some background, Lauren was in a long-term relationship before she met me. She was with a guy we'll call Matt for years and she was deeply in love with him. Matt, however, wasn't the man she thought he was. Their relationship ended badly when she caught him cheating. It left her completely shattered and for a long time, she didn't date at all. When Lauren and I met, she told me about her past with Matt and it was clear how much it had hurt her. She said it wasn't just the betrayal itself, it was the way it made her question her judgment and her worth. Fast forward to now. Jessica, my brother's wife, is someone who has always been, let's say, she's the type of person who thrives on attention, often to the point of making others uncomfortable. She's bold, outspoken and unapologetically flirty, which has caused tension in the family more than once. But this latest revelation took things to a whole new level. About a year after Lauren and I started dating, Jessica casually mentioned something to me that caught me completely off guard. She had slept with Matt. This wasn't during Lauren and Matt's relationship, but it happened not long after their messy breakup. Jessica acted like it was no big deal, laughing it off as though she'd just told me some funny joke. I didn't know how to respond at the time. I was shocked and uncomfortable, but I figured there was no reason to bring it up with Lauren. It was in the past, and I didn't see what good could come from dredging it up. Unfortunately, secrets like this have a way of coming out when you least expect it. A few weeks ago, at a family gathering, my brother and Jessica got into a heated argument. They're known for their explosive fights, so at first, no one paid much attention. But then my brother, in a fit of anger, yelled, "At least I didn't sleep with someone's ex just to prove a point." The room was silent, and all eyes turned to Jessica, who looked completely unfazed. Lauren was standing next to me, and I could feel her getting angry. As the realization hit her, Lauren confronted Jessica right then and there, demanding to know if it was true. Jessica didn't deny it. Instead, she rolled her eyes and said something along the lines of, "It's not like you and Matt were together. Why does it matter?" That was it for Lauren. She was furious and humiliated, and we left the gathering shortly after. On the way home, Lauren told me she didn't want Jessica at the wedding. She said Jessica's actions, both in the past and her dismissive attitude now, proved she wasn't someone Lauren could trust or respect. She argued that our wedding day should be about celebrating our love and surrounding ourselves with people who genuinely care about us. Having Jessica there, knowing what she did, would be a slap to the face. I could see where Lauren was coming from. What Jessica did was hurtful, even if it happened years ago. But at the same time, I knew this decision wasn't going to go over well with my family. Jessica is married to my brother, and excluding her from the wedding would obviously cause drama. I tried suggesting compromises to Lauren, like having Jessica at the ceremony but not the reception, but she wasn't having it. To her, the idea of Jessica being part of our wedding in any way was unacceptable. The fallout started almost immediately. My brother called me the next day, furious. He said banning Jessica from the wedding was an overreaction, and accused Lauren of being petty and rude. I tried to explain Lauren's perspective, but he wasn't interested. To him, this was about family loyalty, and he felt I was siding with Lauren over my own blood. My parents soon got involved, and while they didn't outright take sides, they clearly thought Lauren was overreacting. They kept saying things like, Jessica, for her part, has been completely unapologetic. She told me she didn't regret sleeping with Matt, and didn't see why Lauren was making such a big deal about it. She even suggested that Lauren needed to grow up and stop holding on to old grudges. Her attitude has only made things worse. Now, I feel completely stuck. On one hand, I understand Lauren's feelings. This is her wedding too, and she has every right to decide who she wants there. Jessica's actions were hurtful, and her lack of remorse only adds insult to injury. But on the other hand, I can't ignore the impact this decision is having on my family. My brother and I have always been close, but this situation has driven a wedge between us. My parents are stressed and disappointed, and I can't help but feel like I'm failing as a son and brother. I've tried mediating, but no one is budging. Lauren insists that banning Jessica is non-negotiable. My brother is adamant that if Jessica isn't invited, he won't come either. My parents are caught in the middle trying to play peacemakers, but clearly leaning toward my brother's side. And Jessica, well, Jessica is just being Jessica. This whole situation has turned what should be one of the happiest times of our lives into a nightmare. I'm constantly on edge, torn between loyalty to my wife-to-be and loyalty to my family. No matter what I do, someone is going to be hurt or angry, and I don't know how to fix it. I've been losing sleep over this, and second-guessing every decision. Am I doing the right thing by supporting Lauren? Should I be pushing back more for the sake of family unity? Or is this just one of those situations where there's no right answer? And I have to accept that someone's feelings are going to get hurt. I'm hoping for advice or at least some perspective. How do I navigate this mess without destroying my relationships? Update 1. Things have escalated even further since my last post. The tension is at an all-time high, and the wedding planning has completely derailed. What was supposed to be a time of celebration has turned into a constant juggling act of avoiding family blow-ups, managing my wife-to-be's justified frustrations, and trying to keep everything from collapsing before the big day. After Lauren officially banned Jessica from the wedding, the fallout spread like wildfire. My brother doubled down on his anger, insisting that if Jessica wasn't welcome, then he wouldn't be attending either. This wasn't just about him skipping the wedding, it turned into a full-blown family war. My parents tried to intervene by holding a family meeting to resolve things, but it ended up being another opportunity for everyone to air their grievances. Jessica, as expected, remained unapologetic and even seemed to enjoy the drama. She wasn't shy about voicing her opinion, and she made sure everyone knew she thought Lauren was overreacting and being unreasonable. She went as far as accusing Lauren of trying to divide the family, which only fueled the fire. My brother, being fully on Jessica's side, took every opportunity to add to the tension, accusing Lauren of being controlling, and me of failing to stand up for family. Lauren, meanwhile, stayed firm in her decision. This wedding is a significant milestone for her. She's been dreaming about it for years, and she refuses to let Jessica's presence ruin it. She's poured her heart into every detail, and the thought of Jessica being there, with her attitude and history with Matt, is unacceptable to her. The stress has taken a toll on both of us. Lauren has been trying to stay focused on the positive aspects of the wedding, but it's clear this situation is weighing on her. For my part, I've been running damage control with my family, which feels like an endless battle. Every phone call, every family text, and every interaction turns into an argument about Jessica's ban. At one point, I tried to propose a compromise again, maybe letting Jessica come to the ceremony but not the reception, or having her seated far away from Lauren. But Lauren shut that down immediately, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. This is her wedding day too, and she deserves to feel comfortable and supported. The closer we get to the wedding date, the worse things seem to get. My brother's anger has turned into outright hostility. He's refused to speak to me directly, opting instead to send me passive-aggressive messages through our parents. Jessica, for her part, has started posting cryptic comments on social media, clearly aimed at Lauren. Things like, "Some people can't handle the truth," and "Funny how insecure people can be when you know their secrets." It's immature and infuriating, but Lauren has been adamant about not engaging. In the meantime, the wedding planning has been like navigating a minefield. We've had to rework the seating chart multiple times to account for the potential fallout. There's now an unspoken rule that no one is allowed to bring up Jessica's name when discussing the wedding, but that hasn't stopped the tension from creeping into every conversation. Lauren has also had to deal with her own family's reactions. While they've been supportive of her decision, they're understandably concerned about the drama that might happen on the day. Her mom even suggested eloping to avoid the mess altogether, but Lauren quickly dismissed the idea. She's worked too hard to let this situation rob her of the wedding she's always wanted. To make matters worse, Jessica has started reaching out to other guests, trying to shift everything for her side. She's contacted some of my extended family members, spinning the story to make herself look like the victim, and Lauren look like the villain. A few relatives have even called me, asking why we're punishing Jessica and questioning Lauren's motives. It's exhausting, and I feel like I'm constantly defending our decision. At this point, I'm just trying to keep everything from spiraling completely out of control before the wedding day. Lauren and I have talked extensively about how to handle any potential disruptions, and we've even discussed hiring extra security just in case. It feels ridiculous to have to go to these lengths, but given Jessica's history of stirring the pot, we don't want to take any chances. I wish I could say I see a clear resolution, but right now, it feels like we're bracing something that's going to ruin the whole day. The wedding is supposed to be about celebrating our love and commitment, but it's hard to feel excited when there's this loop of family drama hanging over us. I just hope that when the day finally comes, we can focus on what really matters and not let this situation ruin what should be one of the happiest moments of our lives. I'll update again after the wedding, assuming there's anything left to update. For now, we're just taking things one day at a time and trying to stay focused on what's important. Update 2. The wedding happened. And honestly, I don't know if I can say it went as smoothly as we'd hoped. The entire week leading up to the ceremony was filled with tension, and that stress was in the air as soon as we walked into the venue. Everyone was on edge, waiting for the inevitable fallout from all the family drama to finally explode. Lauren and I had been so focused on trying to keep things calm, but the closer the day got, the harder it became to manage. We spent the morning of the wedding with the wedding party, doing final preparations and trying to keep our minds off what could happen. My brother, as expected, had switched up and now made it clear that he would attend the wedding, regardless of Lauren's decision about Jessica. He wasn't backing down, and that was something I had to accept, but when he showed up, his attitude was immediately noticeable. He wasn't just here for the wedding, he was here to make a point. He walked in with a smug look, like he was trying to prove something. Jessica wasn't there, of course. She wasn't invited after the whole fiasco, and I had hoped that would be the end of it. But my brother had apparently received his own version of events from Jessica, who'd obviously been doing her best to paint herself as the wronged party. From what I gathered, she had given my brother an earful before he even left for the wedding, accusing me of siding with Lauren over family. This is where things started to feel like they were getting out of hand. It wasn't just that Jessica wasn't there, it was the fact that she had made her presence felt. She wasn't physically at the wedding, but her influence was undeniable. My brother wasn't just here for the wedding, he was here to make it clear that he was angry, and he wasn't going to let the whole situation go. I noticed throughout the ceremony that he was watching me closely, as if expecting me to react to every little thing that happened. And every time I caught his eye, I could tell it wasn't about celebration, it was about making some kind of point. But the real chaos didn't happen until we were in the middle of the vows. It was supposed to be one of the most emotional and memorable moments of the day. Well, it was definitely memorable. The crowd was quiet, everyone's attention was on us, and for a brief moment, it felt like nothing could go wrong. Then the door flew open. Jessica was standing there by the entrance. She was angry, her face looked like she was in disbelief. No one had seen her arrive, and she wasn't supposed to be there. But there she was, storming into the room, as if she'd been waiting for the exact moment to ruin the ceremony. I saw Lauren's face freeze in shock as she realized who had just walked in. You could feel the entire room tense up. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen. Jessica wasn't here to apologize, and she wasn't here to make peace. She was here to make sure everyone knew she wasn't going to back down. She wasn't about to let this wedding go on without her trying to take the spotlight. She went straight for my brother, the one person who always tolerated her anger. Jessica started yelling at him, accusing him of betraying her by showing up to the wedding and taking my side. There was no clear logic to what she was saying, only a loud and chaotic outburst. She was acting like this was some kind of grand gesture to make herself heard, as if she was the one being wronged. In the middle of all this, she suddenly turned violent. It was like flipping a switch. She lunged at my brother, her hands went straight for his face, and dug her sharp nails and started clawing his face. The guests were all shocked, some of them just stood and watched, others were trying to figure out how to react. The whole thing was unlike anything I could have expected. In that moment, I couldn't just stand there and watch. There were guests and children. I rushed forward, grabbed Jessica by the arms, and yanked her off my brother. Everyone was just watching like this was a fight club, but Jessica wasn't done. As if that outburst wasn't enough, she made a run for the wedding cake. It wasn't clear whether she planned to wreck the whole thing, or if she was just doing it out of sheer spite, but she reached for the top tier and started pulling on it. This was it. This was the final thing that made me drop all sort of patience for this. I knew I had to act fast before she completely ruined everything. I pulled her away from the cake and shoved her toward the exit. While I was dragging her, she bit me, and I tripped on the floor and fell in the dirt. I didn't care anymore, and just dragged her to their car. She wasn't welcome, and I wasn't about to let her destroy the wedding any further. I turned to my brother, who was standing there, still stunned, and told him to leave. He needed to go, and I didn't care how much he tried to argue or explain. I shoved her into their car and told him he wasn't part of this day anymore, not after almost ruining my wedding. I told him to keep his wife on a leash and spoke down on him for being such a weak, pathetic man. After everything that had just happened, I was covered in dirt. The whole thing had turned into a chaotic mess, and I was more than ready for it to be over. But there was still one thing left to do. The vows. Despite the chaos, the ceremony wasn't over, and I couldn't just walk away from it. I straightened myself up, wiped the dirt from my hands, and returned to the altar. I finished the vows, but honestly, it wasn't the moment I had pictured for our wedding day. Still, I wasn't going to let Jessica ruin everything. As I said the last words, I could hear the audience laughing, as if they were relieved to see the tension break. Maybe they thought it was all a bit stupid, but at that moment, it wasn't about perfection. It was about finishing what we had started. The rest of the ceremony went on, though I could tell it wasn't without some sense of discomfort. The guests were still processing what had just unfolded, but thankfully, the cake survived. We got through it, and as crazy as it all seemed, we were married. The rest of the wedding was a blur, honestly. There was some awkward small talk, but most people were still trying to come to grips with what had just happened. Jessica didn't return, which was a relief. We had no interest in dealing with any more drama. We had a reception, some awkward moments with my family, but overall, the day ended up being what we made of it. When it was all over, Lauren and I were married. Yes, the day had been completely overshadowed by family drama and Jessica's antics. But in the end, we were still standing, and we had made it through. I was relieved that the worst of it was behind us, but I couldn't help but feel a little bit empty. I knew the drama wasn't over. I'm happy to be married to Lauren. She's been incredible through all of this. Despite everything, we've come out of it stronger. I'll take this experience with me, good, bad, or ugly, and continue to move forward. I'm hoping this will be my last post on this. Honestly, after everything, I want to focus on my marriage, on building our future, and leaving this drama behind. Thanks to everyone who's been supportive and offered advice through this. Final update: after the wedding, Lauren and I decided to take a much-needed break. We went on our honeymoon, something we'd both been looking forward to for months. At that point, I was just grateful for the peace and quiet. The wedding had been nothing short of a roller coaster, and I needed some time to just reset. We went to a small beach resort, something relaxing and away from all the drama. The whole trip was a fun and filled with sunshine, good food, and a much calmer atmosphere. We didn't really talk about the wedding too much while we were away. There was no point. We were both trying to put it behind us, and just enjoy our time together. Everything seemed so much simpler, without all of the family drama. It wasn't until we got back home that things started to stir up again. A couple of weeks after we returned, we had to attend a family event. Lauren had some work commitments and was going to show up a bit late. But I was there, preparing myself for what might happen. I wasn't sure if Jessica would be there, but a small part of me thought there was a chance she'd show up, just to cause more trouble. I had hoped I'd be able to avoid her, but of course, the universe had other plans. When I walked into the event, I scanned the room quickly, half expecting to see Jessica's face in the crowd. My brother wasn't there yet, but that didn't surprise me. He had been distant ever since the wedding, and I was kind of glad for it. But then I saw her, Jessica, standing by the snack table, talking to a few people, looking way too comfortable for my liking. I made a mental note to steer clear of her. I didn't need any more drama today, and I was determined to keep the peace. I tried my best to keep my distance, making sure to stay on the other side of the room. I was hoping I wouldn't have to deal with her at all. But as the evening went on, I found myself needing to use the bathroom. I excused myself from a conversation and made my way down the hallway. When I opened the bathroom door, I was taken completely by surprise. There, standing by the sink, was Jessica. I froze for a second, unsure of what was happening. She wasn't exactly hiding, she was just standing there, as if waiting for me to walk in. As soon as she saw me, she walked closer, and I could tell something was off. She was way too confident, almost as if she had been planning this. I tried to keep my distance, but she moved in, closing the gap between us. The situation escalated quickly, without warning. Jessica started saying things that didn't make sense, like she had some right to be here, and that I was the one who had caused everything. She started making vague comments about how much she still cared about me, and how I had ruined everything with Lauren. I tried to back away, telling her that I wasn't interested in whatever she was trying to do, but Jessica wasn't having it. She moved even closer, and before I knew it, she was trying to seduce me, physically cornering me, touching my arm, trying to get under my skin. It was like everything I had worked so hard to avoid was happening in that tiny bathroom. She had cornered me, her body was inches from mine, and I had to react. I wasn't going to let her do this. I immediately pushed her aside, not in an aggressive way, but enough to get her off me. I told her to stay the hell away from me, that I was married, and had no interest in whatever game she was playing. It felt like the situation was spiraling, and I didn't want it to go any further. I knew if I didn't get out of there fast, it could get ugly. Without waiting for another word, I quickly left the bathroom and went back into the main area. I couldn't believe what had just happened, but at the same time, I knew that it was only a matter of time before she tried something like this. She was relentless, and her obsession with me wasn't going to end easily. When Lauren finally arrived, I didn't waste time telling her what had happened. I didn't want to keep secrets, and I knew that if I didn't tell her, it would just eat me up inside. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her exactly what Jessica had done. To my relief, Lauren didn't freak out. She was upset, of course, but she didn't overreact. She understood that nothing had gone too far. I was still shaken by the whole thing, but I also felt a sense of relief that it hadn't escalated. As the evening continued, I stayed close to Lauren. I didn't want to leave her side. When Jessica showed up later, I made sure to keep my distance, but she kept looking at me with that weird, almost predatory look in her eyes. I could feel her watching me, and I knew she wasn't done, but I refused to let her ruin the night any further. The next day I decided it was time to have a serious conversation with my brother. He was the only one who could stop Jessica from continuing her behavior, and I needed to make him understand what had happened. I called him, hoping to clear the air. I was firm with him when we spoke. I told him what Jessica had done, how she tried to manipulate the situation, and how she was still obsessed with me. He didn't believe me at first. He tried to tell me that I was overreacting, but I wouldn't let it go. I explained that Jessica had always been trouble, that she was trying to either ruin my marriage or destroy our family relationships. Eventually he apologized, but it felt hollow. I was done. I told him that I didn't want him or Jessica anywhere near me or Lauren again. He had his own family to look after, and I didn't need him bringing that toxic mess into my life. A few weeks later I got a call from my brother. He told me that Jessica had left him. She had filed for divorce, taking him for everything. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. It seemed like she had been setting this up from the beginning. But what caught me off guard was the way she had done it. Taking him to the cleaners, and leaving him in financial ruin. I wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't surprised either. I told my brother that I didn't want to see him or hear from him for a while. The relationship had been damaged, and I wasn't sure if it was fixable. I told him to take care of his life and leave us out of it. It wasn't about being vindictive. It was about protecting what I had with Lauren. That was the last time I heard from him directly. The drama with Jessica seemed to fade out, but it had left its mark. I was glad that we didn't have to deal with her or my brother anymore. Lauren and I have been doing great. Things are finally normal, and it feels like we've put the worst of it behind us. I'm not looking back anymore. We've built a life together, and we're focused on our future. One that doesn't involve the chaos of my past. Life settled down after everything with Jessica and my brother. Lauren and I took the time to really enjoy the peace that had returned to our lives. We were able to put the drama behind us, and focus on the things that mattered. Our relationship, our future, and just finding joy in the little things. Still, the fallout from all the chaos lingered in the back of my mind, but I wasn't letting it define us. A few months passed, and things with Lauren were better than ever. I knew I had made the right decision by protecting our relationship, even if it meant cutting ties with my own family. In that time, I'd gotten the occasional message from my brother, though he had stopped calling me directly. It was through mutual friends and family members that I learned more about what had happened after his divorce. Jessica had left him for good, taking everything she could, and leaving him financially shattered. He tried to make it work for a while, I guess, but the damage was done. The fact that she had gone to such lengths to destroy him, even after everything that happened between us, made me feel a mix of things. Sympathy for him, but no desire to get involved. I had already made my boundaries clear. I never responded to his messages. Every time one of them popped up, I simply deleted it. I had nothing left to say to him. The relationship we'd once had wasn't something I could just pick up again. The betrayal from him had been clear, and though he apologized for his actions surrounding Jessica, I wasn't sure if the bond we'd had was ever going to be reparable. At family gatherings, I made it a point to keep things civil. I couldn't control who showed up or who didn't, but I knew I had Lauren by my side, and that was enough for me. There were awkward moments, of course. People talking in hushed tones about what had happened, but they kept their distance. There were even moments where people tried to justify Jessica's actions, saying she was going through something. But Lauren and I both saw through that. She was manipulating people, and if anyone wanted to ignore that, that was their choice. Then, about 6 months after the wedding, something unexpected happened. My brother called me, but this time it wasn't a message or a text. He actually called. I hesitated before answering, but I knew I had to. When I picked up, there was no hostility, no deflection. He sounded tired, defeated even. He started by saying how sorry he was for everything, how much he regretted letting Jessica manipulate him, and how badly he had screwed things up. He admitted that he had been blind to what was really happening, and that he had let me down, both as a brother and as a man. The apology was long overdue, and while it didn't undo the damage, it was a step forward. Still, I wasn't sure where to go from here. I listened to what he had to say, but I also had to be honest with him. I told him that what happened between us was something I couldn't just forget. I wasn't interested in dragging all that baggage back into my life. He had made his choices, and while I understood that he had been manipulated, he still had a part in everything that went down. I told him that I appreciated the apology, but that was it. He didn't argue. I could tell he was broken, but there was nothing more to say. We ended the conversation on a somewhat neutral note, though I couldn't help but feel like this chapter was finally closed. My brother had made his mistakes, and while I wasn't cold-hearted enough to deny him forgiveness, I wasn't willing to reopen the door to a relationship that had already been fractured. Things with Lauren continued to improve. In fact, I think this whole thing brought us closer together. We knew we had each other's backs, and nothing was going to tear us apart. Even with all the challenges we'd faced, we came out on top. As for Jessica, I don't know what happened to her after she left my brother. From what I've heard, she continued to stir up trouble wherever she went. I couldn't care less. Whatever happened in her life after that was no longer my concern. I was focused on the life I had with Lauren and the family we were building. I'm sure Jessica still holds on to whatever grudge she's been carrying, but that's her problem, not mine. I don't need to get involved in her mess anymore. My focus is on the life I have with Lauren. We're happy, we're strong, and we're building our future together. That's all that matters. This will be my last post on the matter. I just wanted to update everyone on how things turned out, and thank those of you who supported us through the crazy ride.